News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Monica Ricks. Iran's president is now urging an end to the war with the U.S. in his latest pushback against hardliners who want to keep the conflict going in the Middle East. Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall has the latest now from Washington.
Iran's president, who has been relatively a more moderate figure within the government, urging for some sort of negotiated end to the conflict, saying earlier today, quote, "It would be better to end the war today when we have power and dignity." This was taken as a sign that there may be some sort of renewed bid to get back to the negotiating table. But by and large, we haven't seen really much public indication that that's going to happen.
Reporter Tyler Kendall on Bloomberg Intelligence. The move comes as the U.S. teases more economic pressure against Iran, with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent expected to announce details on Monday. We get more on that from Bloomberg's David Gura.
Look, this is a country, Iran, that's been under sanctions for a very long time. No shortage of sanctions. Our colleagues Rebecca Wasser and others have done very detailed analysis just of sort of how constricted Iran has been here. Unclear what more he could do. And I think that the ones that are the biggest pain points, chiefly targeting China, stand to be very difficult at this moment in time. Of course, we're looking at that meeting in September of President Xi coming to Washington to meet with President Trump.
Bloomberg's David Gura reporting China has issued so-called blocking orders in the past to essentially ignore U.S. sanctions, which is also raising questions on what compliance could look like. President Trump says relief is coming for ground beef imports to help lower prices for American consumers. The U.S. will now allow up to 300,000 metric tons of product for ground beef to be imported over the next 90 days to be sold at 25% below current market prices. Beef prices have soared amid a deep U.S. cattle shortage, with higher production costs and drought making it more difficult for ranchers to raise animals. We check the markets for you all day long here at Bloomberg, and stocks are up after business activity grew at the fastest pace in years last month. The Dow's up 0.7%, and the Nasdaq and S&P are both up about a 0.5 percentage point. The 2-year Treasury yield up 5 basis points at 4.2%. The 10-year yield up 3 basis points at 4.7%, and the 30-year yield also up 3 basis points at 5.2%. Oil prices are holding steady with Brent crude at $94 a barrel, and Bitcoin's headed towards its biggest weekly rally in 3 years at about $77,000. Bloomberg senior commodity strategist Mike McGlone is tracking that rally.
So I look at this right now. This might be the warning that we're entering volatility season. And I think it's more of a bear market rally. And problem is that 10, that's almost approaching 5%. That's just a major headwind for something that has no income.
Commodities strategist Mike McGlone on Bloomberg Intelligence. He called it a short squeeze triggered by the Treasury Secretary's announcement this week of bigger buybacks of long-dated bonds. Samsung's expected to return as much as $80 billion to shareholders this year, joining rival SK Hynix in sharing an AI windfall and fueling optimism across the tech sector. But Julie Beal with Kane Anderson Rudnick still sees this as a possible AI red flag.
I still worry. I don't think it's totally true, but I still worry. What if artificial intelligence is like airlines, where we as consumers really benefit from the CapEx investment, but it takes the airlines and the aircraft manufacturers decades to really make a great return?
You can hear more of that conversation on the Bloomberg Surveillance podcast. Another day, another recall. This time, it's alfalfa sprouts linked to E. coli and salmonella. Health officials say dozens of people have gotten sick so far, mostly in Minnesota and Wisconsin over the last few days. At least 2 people have been hospitalized. A 2-week appeals court reprieve for construction of President Trump's White House ballroom expires at midnight, which means construction crews will be forced to stop working on the building if the Supreme Court doesn't rule by the end of the day. The Wall Street Journal reports the White House has continued construction on the project despite several judges ordering it to stop, with crews working 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. The White House claims they're about 65% done. And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Monica Ricks, and this is Bloomberg.